Let's start 2023 off with a bang, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, welcome, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Rumour, Netflix are going to reboot The Witcher. They're going to send Henry Cavill's The Witcher off with a bang, and they're going to reboot it. Netflix are determined to kill this franchise. They've already done it. And I've said this in other videos. Season 1 had potential. Was it a great first season? In fairness, it was quite weak, but it had potential and it was fun. And then progressively they moved into this weird whatever they've become of it. And the reason Henry Cavill is apparently problematic is that he disagreed with female writing staff. And they went to HR to get rid of him because he disagreed and wanted to create something that was based on the books and not their own third wave feminism ideals. Like, if you go on these writers' Twitters, they are the most thin-skinned, vile, virtue-signaling word I cannot say on this because YouTube will demonetize the video. And they're such a bizarre mixture of victimhood and outrage and false female empowerment that it's hilarious. Like, these things shouldn't really gel, and they don't. Because these people are incapable of writing something that isn't about themselves. And they're incapable of creating anything that isn't a reflection of themselves. It's very shallow, and it really does say everything, doesn't it? They actively mock and dislike the source material, and I think to appease them, they were given, like, The Witcher Blood Origin to do what they wanted with, and that show is just ghastly. Like, I'm watching Twitter right now, and I will say, like, 95% of the tweets I see about The Witcher Blood Origin are just people hating it, and I firmly agree with that. There is that odd 5% which are crying over the joy of seeing black elves and wanting to fuck some of the main stars and all of this stuff. And it's just like, if your enjoyment of a television show comes from wanting to have someone come inside you, there is a major problem here. And I know I'm using quite coarse language, but I mean, this is quite tame compared to the fan art I've seen for The Witcher Blood Origin and Rings of Power, and I never want to see Galadriel do that with that kind of object. No, nightmares, PTSD, no. Um, but Netflix are genuinely just at this point where they want to destroy everything. They don't care about this. They just want the name. They want to push a narrative, and ultimately, if they reboot it, you're going to have Liam Hemsworth, who is a really good actor, by the way, but I can't imagine him as The Witcher, as either Geralt again or a completely original character. But also, he's going to be more of a yes man. He's just going to be happy to be there and will do what he's told, where Henry Cavill is a geek, who's a gamer and reader and fantasy nerd. And, I mean, like, the destruction of Henry Cavill right now is hilarious. A lot of people have backed off when they said, "Oh, do you have receipts?" And it's funny how things have been deleted very quickly, but screenshots are forever. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just watching this kind of destruction, because I said this in another video actually, that watching this sort of dislike for European fantasy and European Western fantasy and seeing it kind of homogenized and destroyed, everything looks the same. The costumes in the Rings of Power, the costumes in The Witcher Blood Origin, Willow, Wheel of Time. You know, you look at those shows and they all look very generic. And it's partly because they're terrified of putting one foot wrong because of fake outrage over, oh my god, there is a white character wearing something that looks remotely Asian. Cultural appropriation. I mean, it's just bizarre that it's just this homogenized product. And that's ultimately what's happened here as well, is that it's just a homogenized product. These shows don't exist to be shows anymore. They exist to be content for a streaming service. They exist to be a YouTube video. They exist to be something other than what they should be, because sort of the death of episodic television is taking its toll, but also these people don't care about what they're writing. They just want to have a platform to lecture you, and that's ultimately a problem as well. I feel like, as a fantasy nerd, as someone who grew up on fantasy and loves fantasy, they've created this bizarre, homunculus product where everything looks the same, where everything is written the same, everything feels the same in terms of visuals, in terms of style, in terms of look, in terms of everything. And ultimately, they're all trying to replicate each other, and they're all trying to be Game of Thrones. And love it or hate it, and regardless of how it ended, at one point Game of Thrones was a big deal. And now, with the House of the Dragon actually being a good fantasy show that's well written with great characters and great stories, everything else is not doing well next to that. The Witcher progressively went downhill when they went away from the source material. They chopped up the source material, made Geralt a secondary character within his own story, where, especially in the later books, there's a 50-50 between him and Ciri, and ultimately they put her above it, and they really made this character an idiot, which I think is a shame. They really stripped Geralt, especially in the later episodes, of anything that made him remotely like the character. And ultimately, it's a shame because they could have built from the promise of season 1. And I say this, was it amazing? No. But it did have promise. It had something. And if they just built on that rather than stripping it back, it would have been fine. But season 2 was god awful, and then I kind of phased out of the rest and been catching up sporadically. Ultimately, I feel like they should just kill The Witcher off on Netflix. No one cares about the show. No one's going to watch it. They're cutting the budget. They're going to reboot it, if this is true, because again, unsubstantiated rumours, but there's enough on the mill to go, okay, are they doing something? It's absolutely absurd, and ultimately, it's a shame, because they could have done something good. I feel like The Witcher should have gone to something like HBO. You know, there is a great Polish version of The Witcher, by the way, which is very worth watching. It's very budget, but it is actually very worth watching. So, yeah, tell me what you think in the comments below. I will talk to you guys a bit later, and I hope you guys are having a great new year.